Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Carrie Siggins, and I am so glad you are here today. I am thrilled to bring my guest to you today. You're going to love this interview so much, especially if you have a sales background or if you're a CEO who's looking to grow sales. This is a good one. My guest today is Mr. Ari Galper. Ari is the founder and CEO of Unlock the Game, and he is the world's number one authority on trust based selling. He's been featured in CEO Magazine, Forbes, Inc. Magazine, Sky News, and the Australian Financial Review. And this episode is fantastic. He talks about how trust is the most important currency in the new economy and that the act of selling is a dehumanizing process with the endless chasing the ghost, as he calls it. And he has completely reinvented and anchored his sales approach in the timeless values of integrity and trust through trust based selling. In his best selling book, Unlock the Sales Game, Ari describes his revolutionary sales approach based on getting to the truth, not getting the sale, getting to the truth, and why having a mindset of focusing on deep trust instead of close the sale is ironically 10 times more profitable. I can't wait for you to listen to this interview. Please give me feedback on it. And you hang tight, and I'll be right back with Ari. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Ari Galper. I'm so excited for this interview today. Ari, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
All right, so burning question after reading through all my material. You have to tell us how you became the world's number one authority on trust based selling.
Sure. So it all began with a story that happened to me about 20 years ago when I was a sales manager at a software company. And I had about 18 people underneath me, salespeople, and we launched the first online website tracking tools, like the Google Analytics, where you can collect information about websites. And we were launching that back then. It was all kind of new and fresh. And the big leads came across my desk that came through our website. So this one contact called, and I got the phone call, huge company and lots of websites. And he wanted to see our product. So we agreed to a conference call and a demo. And the day finally came at 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, and it was such a big opportunity. If I close this one sale, it would double the business for one transaction. That's how big it was. So the day finally came, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm in my conference room with my CEO, and I close the door behind me, big long conference table. The middle table is the old school speakerphones. And I dial the audio speakerphone button, hit the button, and it came up, and I dialed the number. And my guy's like, "Hey, Ari, how's it going?" I said, "Good." And he says to me, "Ari, let us tell you who's with us on the phone today." I said, "Great." Next thing I hear is, "My name's Mike. I'm CEO." I was like, "Ooh, this is good." "My name's Chris. I'm head of global IT." This is even better. "My name is Mike. I'm head of global marketing." Amazing. I mean, everybody on this call was a decision maker. Like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen today because they all are there. Right. And so I introduced myself. Then we logged in to give a live demo of their website tracked in real time with our information and live data. And I'm showing this to them, describing how it all works. And I started hearing these noise on the phone call, like, wow, this is great. This is amazing. This is we love this. They start asking me all kinds of questions. How does it work? How do we install it? Who are your clients? And of course, I had all the answers. I was competent. I knew my stuff. There was so much chemistry on this phone call. It was like a love fest on the phone. You know what I'm talking about, the client?
I do. Yeah.
It just feels so right. You're like, "Oh god, there's no resistance. This is so good." And an hour goes by, they're loving it. I'm having an amazing call. I'm like, "This is the dream come true." Call comes to a close. My contact says to me, "Ari, this is amazing. We love it. Look, give us a call a couple weeks, follow up with us, and we'll move this thing forward." I'm like, perfect. What an amazing call. Great ending. Great next step. And I say my goodbyes, and I take my arm in my hand to reach for the speakerphone hit the off button on the phone. And I was reaching for the off button, but by complete accident, I hit the mute button instead of the off button. They were right next to each other, and a small click happened, and they thought I hung up the phone. In that split second, a voice inside of me said, "Ari, go to the dark side. Be a fly on the wall. Go where no one's ever gone before in the world of sales. You have nothing to lose." So I pulled my thumb back for a couple seconds. they started talking amongst themselves, thinking I had left the call. Now, you may know the story already, but what would you imagine you would have heard in a call like that? What would you expect to hear from people like that after the call that we just had together?
How great you were.
Of course. No, not even me, just the product. Like,
Yeah, the
we're
product
excited,
product, right, exactly, your
great,
company, all of it, yeah, mhm.
like good things. But let me share with you what I heard verbatim, word for word. It's why we're all here today. What they said was that they said, we're not going to go with him. Keep using him for more information and make sure we shop someplace else cheaper. Knife in heart twist. I was in a state of shock. I mean, I could not believe it. I snapped out of it, hit the off button, looked at the wall, and I said to myself, what did I do wrong? I was honest. I was truthful. I was consultative. I was at a value. I did everything I was taught to do by the sales gurus over the years. And the first big and the question that I asked myself was this: why were they afraid to just tell me the truth?
Yeah,
Why this lying? Why these games? And I had a big epiphany, and I realized that somewhere along the way, it has become socially acceptable not to tell the truth to people who sell, right?
yep,
It's okay to say things like, "Sounds good. Send me information." "Oh, we're definitely interested." "Oh, wait. Send us a what?" "Send us a proposal." Yay! Without any intention of moving forward. And I asked myself, why is this going on? And I realized there's this invisible kind of flow of pressure that flows underneath every call you have with someone in your sales process. Now, you can't see it and they can't see it, but boy, they can feel it. And if you aren't consciously aware of removing the pressure from your sales process all the time, what will happen is their guard will always be up. They'll only give you just enough for you to be excited about. It will never tell you the truth. And that's where I began to realize this is a dysfunctional, horrible game going on in the market in this industry. And I got to make a change here. And I decided to shift my whole mindset and teach a whole new way of thinking about this, where you let go of your goal of the sale and you focus only on building deep trust with someone where they feel comfortable and vulnerable enough telling you the truth. Because if you focus on that goal, then you can basically have a trust based conversation, not be up here playing the sales game, chasing ghosts, hoping they call you back and playing the numbers game. That became the whole shift. And what I got known for over the years as for Unlock the Game, our sales system, which is now, impact thousands of people all over the world.
yeah, so good, great story, by the way, I can only imagine, how shocking it was. Did you ever call them back? Just curious.
Good question. People always ask me, Ari, what would you do now if you knew what you knew now 20 years before?
Yeah,
And actually, no, I didn't call it back. They disappeared on me. But what I
yeah,
would have done was this, and that is that I never would have had the call because on the first call, I would have got the truth.
yeah,
I would have been seduced into the next call, which is what happens all the time. We get that inbound call, we're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I got the call. This is so," and you just get sort of elevated to a whole new space, and you lose your grounding, and that's what we'll talk about today, how to break that pattern and conditioning.
tell us the premise behind the unlock the game mindset.
Okay, sure. So to do this, there's sort of three myths we have to kind of delodge from our old thinking around what we believe selling is. And one of those myths is that sales is a numbers game.
Yep,
Sure heard that before in your career
oh,
and
yeah,
your job, your work, that it's all about how many contacts you make, right? Because the more contacts you make, supposedly, the more sales you make. Well, we discovered it's not about how many contacts you make anymore. It's about how deep you go on each conversation, how good you are at trust building, not how good you are, how many contacts you make. The other myth to kind of clean out is the idea that the sale is lost at the end of the process. Now, we discovered the sales in this economy now is lost at the beginning of the process, at hello. And I'll prove it to you right now in a fun way. If someone calls your office tomorrow morning and you pick up the phone and you hear, "Hi, my name is, I'm with, we are a," what goes through your mind in about 3 seconds?
oh god, another call, another cold call, no.
It's over at hello. And
Uh-huh,
I'm not
mhm,
suggesting that your folks listening today are making outbound calls, but I will make the case today that many of them are losing their opportunities at the beginning of the process and not the end, which will really shift their thinking. And the last myth to clean out here before I get into the principles is the idea of rejection. That rejection is supposed to be part of the sales game. You know, it came from the old sales managers that, hey, if you're not thick skinned, if you're not tough enough, if you can't take a no, if you're not resilient, you're not made for success. Well, we discovered that rejection actually is triggered by certain things you say and do unconsciously that cause the other person to put their guard up, and now you're fighting resistance against resistance. And I'll share with those things today to remove those to help people make their breakthrough. That's kind of how we clear
Yeah.
out the hard drive to move in the principles.
Yeah, I love that. I actually just experienced this myself today. I was
Really?
on the call with a person I'm looking at book publishers now, and I was just instantly turned off by this person's like all about me. And I was trying to be funny, but it just wasn't. And I didn't have any of that, like, instant trust, instant connection, and then basically, it was like, "Once you have your book ready, like, this is what we'll do," and there was no, like, "I'm here to walk you through the process." He literally gave me about 5 pages worth of information verbally in 20 minutes, and then I was like, "Well, I can't, like, understand all of this, especially to compare apples to apples, to make sure that I understand because every book publisher does something different. Can you send me a document that, like, really explains all this to me?" He's like, "Well, I don't have that." I was so frustrated, and I did exactly what that was. I was like, "Well, send me what you have, and then I'll call you back. I'll call you back once I've reviewed it." And I know I'm not gonna call him back. So, but the whole thing is that I can see him in that mindset, right? Of, I've got to push through this rejection. Rejection's going to be okay. Like I could see all those 3 myths right there playing out in the call of that in his mindset. So it's really interesting to listen to you talk about those things and just be able to experience somebody's belief in those myths as they were trying to sell me today. It was very frustrating.
The more you can step out of the conversation yourself like you are right now and look
Yeah.
down on it, watch what's happening, you will
Yeah.
realize that people are still conditioned from the
Yeah.
1980s to still just spray and pray. Because what they're
Yeah.
doing is hoping that if they educate you and over deliver, you'll somehow
Uh-huh.
go, fantastic, where do I sign? Which is so over. People don't need, see, what I discovered is that complexity equals fear. And what happened with you is you pulled down and got fearful and constrained because it's all too complicated. But
Yep.
if they and simplicity equals trust. You see, what he
Yeah.
wasn't able to do is make it simple and easy for you to say yes. So you had to pull back now. The game begins and the whole dysfunctional practice starts.
Yep. Yeah, I totally see it. In the moment, all I was thinking about was how annoyed I was.
Of
But,
course.
through
Frustrating.
this conversation, I can absolutely see, the belief in those myths and not stepping out of his own self, right, to build that relationship with me. Like, he has no idea what my book is even about.
See, for him, it was all about him.
Yeah.
You were
Yep.
not part of the process with what happened in
Yeah.
that phone call. You are just he's just doing robotic processes he was taught to do by his company, which was
Yeah.
educate you on the solution. What he
Yeah.
didn't do, he did not diagnose your problem like a doctor would with the patient. That's our
Yep.
model. Our model is doctor-patient relationship, where it's problem-centric, not solution centric, you see? And he wasn't able to get over that. And what we'll talk
Yep.
about today is how to shift your thinking into a process. And I'm working on a new book actually coming out next this year called The One Call Sale, which is how to compress your sales cycle from multiple steps into one single conversation.
Yeah.
Where at the end it's a yes or no without pressure at all. And that will be
Yep.
the ultimate solution everyone's been dreaming about in the sales world because they're so used to chasing ghosts who never call them back.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Okay. Well, that's a great segue. Sorry. That's an internal joke. It's a great segue. That's a great segue into my original question was the premise behind. So thank you for lining out the myths. So now
Yes.
how do people use the unlock the game mindset
Yes.
to build that trust with their
Correct.
clients?
So there's a couple principles behind this, and it's some tactical ideas as well. So I developed my own what we call trust-based languaging, words and phrases that elicit that truth-based conversation without scripting and all that stuff that we all hate, based on a couple principles. And the first principle is the idea that you have to always be diffusing pressure out of the conversation, taking pressure out, because that builds trust with people. Let me give you a real scenario right now, an example how to use this. Let's say you're having a first call with somebody over the phone, potential client, and good chemistry, good conversation, and in your mind, you're like, they could be a good fit. You get a little excited about this, and the call kind of comes to a close. Normally in sales, we say things like, what? How about we get together, move forward, next step? Because we're conditioned to
Yep.
move things where?
One step forward at a time.
Correct. But what
Yep.
happens if you attempt to move things forward and they aren't ready yet at the beginning? What do
Yeah.
you break with them right at the beginning?
Yeah, man, they get
You break
annoyed.
trust.
They feel
You
pressure. Yeah, they feel
That's right.
pressure.
But we're so conditioned to the next step, you can break it right there. So, same scenario, our mindset, our languaging. Call is going well, good chemistry, could be a good fit. Call comes to an end. Ryan saying, great. How about we move forward? What we say instead is this: we say, where do you think we should go from here?
Yep.
And I'll say it again. Where do you think we should go from here? Now, how does that shift the moment with the person you're talking to? What's happening in their mind?
Yeah, but it's like, "Ooh, I get to be in charge of this. I get to decide what I want to be able to do." And it probably allows them the opportunity to maybe be honest to say, "I don't know if this is gonna work."
First of all, when you say to somebody, "Where do you think we should go from here?" They're usually in a state of shock.
Yeah, right, of
They
course.
can't believe somebody in business would
Yeah,
ask what they want to do.
yeah,
They're so used to people taking them down a linear process. They know it a mile away. The minute they hear it, their mind goes up. I'm going to pull back now because here I go. I'm going to be sold in this process. So when you say that to somebody, you're right. They say things like, well, I've got one more question. Well, what about this? And
yeah,
what comes out is the truth.
yeah,
And that's your goal. Your goal is to elicit the truth from people, not the sale. That's a huge shift in thinking because we're so conditioned to move people towards the sale. And what
yeah,
I'm saying is the premise here is you will lose so much more of your time in sales by focusing on your goal. But instead, if you focus on the truth between the both of you and you build, I'm not saying you're not trustworthy, but if you build conscious trust with them and they feel the sense that you're genuine and authentic with them and you care about them, what a concept. You actually care about them, then everything changes based upon our model.
I love it. Alright, so what's the second principle?
That's the first. Second one is the
Yeah,
idea of what I say is getting to the truth of people. And what does that
yeah,
mean? What that means, it sounds a bit abstract, but make it more tangible. What that means is building a moment of vulnerability with them where they feel comfortable telling you the truth and you know where you stand with them from the beginning. Let me give you an example of this. Only recently, someone called my office and they got through my team. They got to me. The phone rang unsolicited. I picked the phone up and I heard Mr. Galper. I said, yes. He says, my name is John Johnson. I'm changing the name. I'm with XYZ company, big, huge company. You reckon they're a global brand. We're looking to bring someone in to train our sales force. We're looking at you and a few other people. We'd like to know, first of all, why should we go with you? Why are you the best? And give me your best sales pitch. He says this to me. That's what the game that's in the world he's in. So I took a deep breath. I lowered my voice. I got centered into my mindset. I calmed, centered, and I said to him, well, isn't that interesting? And there was a long pause. And then I said, over here at our company, we have a very similar process to you where we ask a couple questions, see if we're a good fit. And if we're a good fit, we decided where to go from there. I said to him, would you be open to that? And there was dead silence on the phone, not a word. I was like, "Oh my god, he's still there." It's just, like, quiet. Then his breath came to the phone like a sigh of relief. You can tell his shoulders came down. He lowers his voice and he says to me, "Uh, okay. What kind of questions do you have for me?" Next thing I know, within 5 minutes, I discover, 1, he's not a decision maker. 2, he has no budget. And 3, he's just curious as to what I do. And off he went to my website for some information I had on there. I hung up the phone. Now, what did my process just save me months of?
Chasing something that was never gonna come to be.
Chasing ghosts,
Yep.
time, energy, and it's this drug in our bodies, and it's triggered with calls like that. You know what it's called? That drug? It's called hopium. Yeah. You know the hopium. You're like, "Oh my god, honey, guess what? I got the call. I'm so excited. Feed you this year. Yeah, I got the call." We get all pumped up because we think we have a possible sale. And now we're in this new la la land chasing this person. You call them, they're not there. You get their voicemail like, "What the why is he not there?" Then you go to your laptop or your computer and you open your email and you write an email to me. You say, "Hi, I'm writing you to what? To follow up on our conversation. I'm going to ask you right now and your listeners to take an oath with me, a verbal one, to for the rest of your careers to never again use this phrase I'm about to give you in selling ever again. And here it is. This might hurt just a bit for those of you who've been in sales for a long time. But I'm going to ask you to never again, as of this recording, use the phrase follow up ever again for the rest of your career. And I ask the audience, how many of you have used follow up in the last few weeks on the phone call or on email?
Yeah.
Who's written the word follow up?
Everybody. Yeah.
Everyone,
Yeah,
because
everybody.
we're so conditioned.
Yep.
When you call somebody back and you say, "Hi, I'm calling to follow up," what are they thinking?
Yeah.
They're trying to move things where?
Yep. To the next step.
Forward.
Yeah.
There's a few more other classic ones that we still have in the back of our subconscious from the '80s. Remember the other ones? Like, I'm just giving you a call to what are the other one? Were those to check
Yeah.
in,
Check in. Yep.
touch base?
Touch base. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Oh, '80s. It's terrible. And the minute they hear that, they associate you with the negative salesperson stereotype that everyone hates,
Yep.
especially now. So here's what you say instead. This comes right from our trust-based languaging work. You say, "I'm giving you a call to see if you have any feedback on our previous conversation, any feedback on our proposal, any feedback on our last email." So when you say feedback to people, that's not going forward. That's going backwards. You got to go away from the sale, the opposite direction. See, we're so conditioned when we sense an opportunity, our instinct says, what? I got to move this thing
Yep. Forward.
forward. But when you shift your thinking to our approach, your goal is to get to the truth of what their problem is to see if you're fit or not. So
Yep.
ultimately, you're selecting them. They aren't selecting you.
Yep.
It's like when you go see a doctor, right? They don't try to become your friend and build a relationship with you. What they say to you is, "Where does it hurt?" And you say, "My shoulder." Like he says, "Let me take a look over here." Ah, right. Oh, all right. I think you might need an X-ray on that, so we can really understand what the core issue is before I can even think about writing a prescription. See, in sales, what do? When we sense an opportunity, like that guy with you on the phone today, he's like,
Yeah.
"Let me show what I got. Here's a
Yep.
prescription. It does this, it does that." And you're like, "What?" That's where we lose millions of dollars every year in selling by making those assumptions and skipping these steps because we've never been taught before how to constantly create deep trust with people until now.
Yep. Brilliant. And so true. Whenever you're rushed forward, you never feel that way. So I think it's brilliant. I love it. And what's the third principle?
The third principle is the idea of of replacing your sales pitch. You know the 30-second commercial thing and the elevator pitch thing where you meet someone like, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm a coach and I do this." So our model is where you shift your solution away from discussing your presentation. Instead, you focus on their problem. And this is your problem centric, not solution centric, right? Like, see what he did with you is he made an immediate assumption that you're a fit for a solution. And he spent no time unpacking your concerns and challenges at all because he just assumed you're a fit for the solution. And that
Mm.
assumption killed the sale and
Yep.
killed trust with you and frustration.
Yep.
Because when he entered that call with you, he was not in diagnostic mode. He was in sales mode. And people listening today will relate to this because most people who have been conditioned to sell are usually in sales mode. Now they'll say to you, "Oh no, Ari, I do listen. I do ask questions." Yeah, they ask questions at what I call the surface level of the iceberg to qualify. Then once they're qualified, they go right into the next step. What they don't do is they don't go below the iceberg to unpack the problems, amplify them, ROI the impact of them, and ask this question. And here's the profound telling question. Here it comes. You want to ask this question: is this a priority for you
Yep.
to solve once and for all? Or you're happy to live with it and deal with it long term, and I'm okay either way. That way you own the problem. See, it's like
Yep.
a therapist and a patient. If the patient doesn't own their own problem, they sure as heck aren't going to want to solve it.
Yep.
And what he did with you is he stayed in his head the whole time. He didn't
Yep.
have a process or a model for how to go into your world in a trust based way to make you feel comfortable, where your instinct says to you, this guy gets me.
You know what he even said to me when I said, "Okay, tell me about your process." So, I wanna make sure I understand so I can compare apples to apples. He knows that I have a bunch of proposals in front of me. "So tell me about what you do." He said, "That is my favorite thing to talk about."
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
favorite thing to talk about, what we do. I
Of
was like,
course, he
"Ugh,
loves talking about
God."
himself, right.
Yeah, it was
We
so
we have
bad.
this
There was not anything around that. I mean, this is such a great example because there was nothing. Like I said, I mean, he doesn't even know what my book was about. He did say, "Send it to me, we'll read it," but I'm like, "I don't wanna send you my book." But yeah, it just lost it j I he just lost me.
what happens is that we have this internal need to be validated,
Yeah,
and psychologically, we're walking around wounded when we're trying to sell people because we're trying to look for ways for them to shine a light on us
yeah,
unconsciously for us to feel competent in what we do, you see? And what he
yep,
was doing with you is looking for ways to validate what he believed was right for you. What he didn't
yep,
do, that assumes assumptions about you, and that's where he fell down because he was never taught how to create authentic, deep trust with people. And most people
yep,
listening today have never been taught that before. Now, when you're at home with your family and kids, it's very unconscious and natural. But when you get to work, what happens is we put what we call sales armor on us. We put this wall around
yep,
us. We have it to protect ourselves from these bullets coming our way, and we change who we are. We get in this kind of rote model, and we get robotic, and all of a sudden we lose our authenticity. And you don't realize it, but they can feel it from you at hello.
yeah. This is really great, and I'm really glad I have this example because, I can just play it out all out in my mind right now in real life, and, think back to some of these mistakes when in my earlier career when I was a salesperson and so desperate to, prove myself well, make money, number 1, right? Like, okay, I have no book of business and I'm 100% commission. I have to figure out you just get into this desperate mode and it makes you do stupid things like make the sale about yourself and you can just see that desperation coming through people. Like I even had somebody just recently I said, "I might be interested in what you have to offer. Give me until the first of the year. I'll reach back out." And I legitimately like I was interested in learning more about this company. And on Monday, he scheduled an appointment with me on my calendar without
Wow.
asking me, and then just
Wow.
said, "If this time doesn't work for you, let me know." And
Wow.
done. Like, I'm not gonna use them. How disrespectful. I mean, I'm busy. I run 2 big companies. Like, how can you just presume that it's okay to, like, come in and take a appointment on my calendar and then have me let you know if it doesn't work for me? Like, I just cannot believe some of the sales tactics today. Like, what do you say to somebody who did something like that?
Just delete his contact. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
right.
Just that's called dysfunctional behavior that is starting to go over to a direction you don't want to talk to people like that who don't care about you.
Right? I know. It's just crazy. But it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and I
It's
think,
on LinkedIn,
I
it's
think
on look at LinkedIn right
yeah.
now, look at your inbox there, it's everywhere. See, what's
Yeah.
happened is
Oh, yeah.
this: people have taken the old approaches from the '80s and '90s and now put them into new mediums,
Yeah.
right? "Oh, I'm not cold
Yeah.
calling, I'm on LinkedIn." I'm like, "Yeah, but look at your writing." It's like the same approach, same mindset burning through people, and boy, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right
So
now
so
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, no, go ahead. Right now?
I was gonna say that I really believe the new currency is trust in business, and if you can't
Yeah.
constantly create it in all your marketing and sales processes, you are losing a lot more than you're making.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, since we're on this topic of LinkedIn and in the virtual world, how do you start to build that trust when there is so much noise, when everybody is getting bombarded with these types of messages? How do you break through and build that trust when you don't have that relationship, especially virtually, since we can't go and actually see people face to face these days?
Well, you start your process, whether it's marketing or the actual conversation, around their problem. You don't
Yeah,
market your business or your solution, you market the problem. You see,
yeah,
the whole front end of your marketing process should be not here's what we do, because here's what we do is a solution. They don't care about what your solution. All they care about is, are you the one they can trust? See, we think we they care about how we do what we do. They don't care about
yeah,
you don't really care about what his book process was. All you cared about was this is do I trust him to understand my unique needs? And see, we're so conditioned to believe and love with our own. And I tell my clients is all I say is I say, fall out of love with your solution and fall in love with your customers' problems. I just let go of your world and step into theirs.
yeah. Well, I think that goes into one of the comments that you had in your book, one of the phrases from your book that I really liked, right? In this new economy, the sale is no longer made at the end, but at the beginning. And I think that's what you mean by that, right? Is it's about that problem, about putting the customer first. Is that correct?
Absolutely. This is the premise of my new book with a one call sale, where
Yeah.
the concept here is that now I'll drop a bomb right now, a little tip from what's coming from this book. But what I'll be making the case for in there is that your goal is not to build a relationship with someone in your sales process. You build a relationship after they're a client,
Yeah.
not before they're a client, because relationship building and trust building are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
See, we're taught when we meet someone for their first time, our job is to build rapport. Oh, hi, how's it going? Where are you from? What do you do? Oh, great. See, we lay it on thick because we think that's our job. But they know one, it's fake.
Yeah.
Two, they know they don't want to become your friend anyways. It's the social rules that we're applying to. All they want from their perspective is to find someone they can trust to solve their problem. Now, that's the true premise. Then, and I'll make the case for this in this book, that you want to strip everything out of your process that feels like relationship building. Now, this is a real bomb because people are so used to what? That's what I do, Ari. I'm really good at relationship building. I got a lot of relationships. Oh yeah, big network. I'm relationship. Like, yeah, but look at your sales number. You're looking at the wrong goal. You got to be a
Yeah.
doctor solving a problem, not becoming their friend. That creates a long sales cycle, and what it does, it mixes social norms and business norms. Now there's no obligation to move forward with you because they're your friend. Like, it's such an yeah, it's a huge shift.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. I mean, relationship building is probably overused. I mean, it's something that we commonly talk about, but I think you're right? It is that whole trust thing. It really has to come down for trust because you can have a relationship and have no trust. Do I know you can solve my problem and you can help me? Right? I think people get stuck on that old saying from the 80s, right? People buy products from people who they like. No, they don't. Like I don't like Amazon at all. But they solve a very easy problem for me. I live in
Correct.
rural Colorado and with no shopping, and I can
Yep.
order everything I need and get everything I need. They solve my
Yep.
problem, and I do not like them at all.
Yep.
So, that's just such a cliche now, but you're right. People still use it. I just haven't
Look,
you thought about it in this pretense before.
you can still have warmth and bedside manner like a doctor. You don't have to be
Yes.
cold and moody. You can still be your warm, beautiful self, but you've got to be 100% diagnostic in your a process with someone via Zoom or for your initial call with them and not talk about you. That it's a whole another way of thinking now because now you got to come up with questions to ask that really unpack their problem to the extent where you understand their world better than they do themselves because in your experience as a business owner that people come to you, they may tell you what they want, but it's not what they need. How many times you talk to someone who says, "Oh, yeah, I'm looking for this," and it turns
Yeah.
out their real problem is that, because they themselves don't even know their own problem. And that's
Yeah.
the fascinating thing about this whole approach is that you have to go into your sales conversations assuming they don't even know their own depth of their own problems, because they
Yeah.
can't, because clients view their world 180 degrees. All they can see is what's in front of them, but we on the outside can see a 360. Like a doctor can diagnose with the X-ray machine, right? The X-ray goes on the wall with the light, and they can see things that you can't see as the patient. All you do is you feel the pain, but you don't
Yeah.
know what the problem is. Same
Yeah.
metaphor.
Well, and I like this concept too, because when you think about it as, okay, I'm a doctor and I'm helping a patient, it also allows you to kind of push back a little bit to say, like, hey, there's probably a different way to look at this. And I think so many sales professionals are scared to push back on their clients. And so it's just easier to just say, this is what he asked for, so this is what I'm going to give him. And instead of that whole diagnostic, like you say, right? I'm going to really dig in and I'm going to redirect if my client is on the wrong path. So, how do you advise your clients in, sales professionals to have those types of trust-based conversations that might not be easy, that might be a little bit, challenging the customer, so to speak.
Well, that takes courage.
Yeah.
And if you don't have courage to tell them the truth, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
What's happened is not you, but if you're hearing this right now and you're going, you know, right, Ari, I should become more bold in what I believe is right. I should help them see the truth of their own problem. Because here's the thing, you're okay to do that because they are looking for truth tellers. They're not looking for people who say yes, 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 yes. Because guess who's doing that? Everybody else.
Yeah.
That's why you said to me about that guy, you're like, apples to apples, because everyone's it's all commoditized. It all looks the same. What's the difference? Because we're
Yeah.
all selling the same, and most companies now are selling the same way. So what I tell people is that if you want to differentiate in this new business world, you can't do it on your product. I'm sorry, unless you're Apple
Yeah.
Computer,
Yeah.
because the world's become commoditized. A book
Yeah.
publisher is a book publisher, is a book publisher. Woohoo! What's new about that?
Yeah.
But you can differentiate and become a category of one if you innovate and shift your sales approach.
Yep.
You innovate by the way you sell, not your offering.
Yep. Totally agree. Totally agree. So I want to talk a little bit more about this trust-based language because I think it's such an important aspect. And you've given us a couple of phrases to use to create that trust. Give us some more of your, of your secret sauce. Give us that trust-based language that sales leaders can weave into their sales pitches.
Sure. Okay, I'll give some classic ones that I'm kind of
Okay.
famous for. So, like typically in sales, you might say to somebody, "Would you be interested in this as an opportunity?" So we use the word "would you be open?" Because open doesn't force them into a yes or a no.
Yep.
Open creates a new space where they feel comfortable telling you the truth, right?
Yep.
For instance, even with objections, right? Typically in sales, we're taught when someone gives you an objection, you're supposed to overcome it. But what happens if someone tells you something that's true and you try to overcome it? What do you break with them right there? You create this trust with them. So
Yep.
in our world, we diffuse, we don't overcome. We diffuse and re-engage again. Let me give you an example. And we got this all mapped out by every scenario possible. I imagine the last 20 years, but here's an example. If someone says to you, your price is too high, in our world, what you say is this. You say, you're absolutely
Absolutely.
right. It can be, and here's the operative word, it can be perceived as high. No doubt about that. If you haven't had a chance to
Yep.
actually work with us, get the results, to make the ROI to pay it back. You're right. From the outside in, it does appear that way. No doubt about that.
Yep. Yep.
I just that diffuses and they get confused, like, what? She's not defending
Yeah.
herself? This is really
He just said,
strange.
yeah, right. He just said yes.
That
It is
this
high.
is really this is kind of weird. Then you say,
Yeah.
the last thing I want to do is convince you to do something that you want to do.
Yep.
And here it is. Would you be open to us relooking at your situation, different perspective, and building a business case for this that makes sense for both of us? Would that make sense for you? Would you be open to that?
Yep.
So I went through a 3-step process there. I
Yep.
diffused, I re-engaged, and I connected again without breaking the relationship.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I love it. What's the best advice that you have for CEOs who really want to strengthen this process? Like, how do they get started with this trust-based selling method?
Well, if the last hour resonates with you, you're
Mhm.
saying to yourself, "Oh, he's so right. We've
Yep.
lost so many deals by chasing ghosts, probably because of us, not them."
Yep.
Then it's time to reach out for some help.
Yeah.
You can't solve this on your own. That's the big reveal. This isn't like you can go fix it all yourself and you're passive ready to go. You gotta get some outside help because you're too close to your own problem.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
outside help, and I tell people, reach out to us. I do a live show on LinkedIn once a month called Stump the Guru, where you can jump on, ask me your toughest question, I'll do some coaching for you. We offer a free consultation. I mean, you got to reach out and be vulnerable and get some help. And that's what I suggest to all of you listening right now. If this resonates with you and you're not afraid to have us expose the truth of your own problem, then be brave and courageous and fix it once and for all. You'll have an amazing year. And that's the next step.
Especially when we've all been trained to sell the same way since, as you said, the '80s, although I was just a very young child in the '80s, so I wasn't doing too much selling unless it was to my mom. But we do, right? We do it all the old school way. I mean, I feel like we're a very progressive company in in our sales and marketing strategies, and we still do it wrong just based on everything that we've talked about in this last hour.
I'm sure if you play the recordings right now of your calls for salespeople, and I heard them live right now in recordings,
Yeah.
we both be cringing right now
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
because the sale is lost or made, not in the CRM, not in the marketing. It's lost or made inside the actual conversation.
Yep.
And that's where no one wants to go. So my
Yep.
private clients bring me their recordings of their sales calls and Zoom calls. I play them live with them. We stop the tape like a football game. We stop the tape and we say, "Stop right there. See what happened
Yeah.
there? You jumped in
Yeah.
too early. You didn't go long enough. You didn't listen carefully." And they're like, "Oh my God, you're so right. You're so right."
Yeah.
Because they've been sleepwalking through their pitching process for years.
And so how do you work? Do you work with teams or do you like you just said you working with individuals? Like, how does your process work?
Half our work is done with heads of sales organizations and CEOs who have large
Yeah.
teams, and also half is with entrepreneurs who have to
Mhm.
bring in some big deals, the whales,
Mhm.
so to speak,
Mhm.
versus the minnows, and longer
Mhm.
sales cycles. We literally do one-on-one deep dive, what we call in deal coaching, where you bring your pipeline to us
Yep.
and we meet on Zoom once a week like this, and you like literally just here, Ari, here's what I got pending. I
Yep.
had a call with this company. They told me this. I told them this. They told me this. Now they've disappeared on me. What do I do? Like that's how we literally create money out of nothing because the
Yep.
majority of see most companies they measure how much they've made. They've not measured how much they've lost. And
Yep.
most likely 80% of your revenue is still sitting somewhere in your pipeline, which is for people who just been you're chasing. We can recover a small percentage of that. That could double your business without any more
Yep.
marketing.
I love it. All right, so we're gonna have to wrap up the show, but tell us how people can find you. Anybody who this show is like, yes, and I need Ari. Tell me how do they find
Look,
you?
I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, look up my name, Ari Galper, connect with me there, say hello, that we met here, or go to unlockthegame.com. There's lots of options there. We have a free intro course, complimentary consultation with us, and experience that in itself. See what it's like not to be sold. Experience what it's like to talk to somebody who actually diagnoses your problem and does not offer you a solution. Just experience it in itself is such a beautiful thing. So don't be afraid to step out and get some help because on your own you're sleepwalking and you'll realize that once you work with us.
All right. Well, this has been so inspiring. I've had such a great time. I know that the Reflect Forward listeners are going to love this episode. Thank you so much for sharing your insight, and I'll include all that information in the show notes so everybody can
Sure.
reach you that way. So, thank you so much for coming on today. I really
Wonderful. It's
appreciate it.
been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, hang tight, and I'll be right back. All right, that's it for this week's episode of Reflect Forward. I hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, if you like this podcast, please write a review, like it, subscribe to it, share it with a friend. I always appreciate it. Thanks so much. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.